Hello, hello, hello. Back again. Just wanted to document the next part in this fish tank journey that I talked about as far as connecting to fish tanks. So I wanted to show you guys what I've done so far. I got a little bit of a PVC tube, and as I mentioned before, I got a small one over here that's kind of connected, and the drop off is a little bit above the surface over there. And as you can see, if you take a look back, the level is a little bit lower on this side so that it kind of creates a vacuum effect once the water starts flowing. So gravity will just automatically just start pulling water from there on its own, ideally. And I might end up cutting that section a little bit lower just to increase the flow levels. So just so you guys know, the closer those two levels are at parity to each other, the slower, I should say, the water is going to flow from one end to the other. So if you had this ending over here, if you had this upper ending, maybe instead of at this level, you had it up here, and you put this, if your water level was a little bit lower and you started to flow down, it would be flowing very fast because the amount of water on this side pulling down and creating the suction force for this upper level would be much higher, if that made any sort of sense. So TLDR, the closer these two are to each other at level, the slower it's going to move. If they're both at the same level, it's not going to move at all. And if this end is lower, it's also not going to move at all. In fact, it's going to go in reverse. It's going to pull. So in this case, I wanted it to pull down. Anyway, let me see over here. Oh yeah, I guess I'll talk about it for a second. So in theory, you could also have the water from this tank pumping into this, as I just said, because if I had this pipe coming all the way down here or something, and then the suction up here, then yes, it would create a vacuum force. Though it would be a little tricky, in my opinion, to get that functioning underwater. I have to think about that, like how exactly you'd get that done. I'm not even sure if that would work actually, because there'd be like water pressure from this level pushing back. Okay, you know what? Forget I said that. Let's move on now. So here's the actual travel bridge that I got. As you can see, the PVC pipe, it's a little bit larger than the previous one because, as I said, I just wanted this to be like kind of an intake flow valve just to move water back and forth to create like the circulation. I gotta say that I'm a little surprised. So what I was trying to do, as you can see, I kind of wanted these two endings to kind of be on parity with each other if possible, which means that this one was obviously going to be a lot lower. So as you can see, I haven't really been able to accomplish that right now. And bending the PVC pipe at a 90-degree angle with a heat gun has been pretty tricky because there's been a kink forming. I don't know if you guys can imagine it, but when it bends at a 90-degree angle, it creates like this kink in the PVC pipe that's really narrows out the traveling of the pipe. So I don't think that it's possible, like the water can get through, but the fish can't get through there. So I decided like what I'm gonna end up doing instead is I'm probably gonna have to cut these PVC pipes again, and I'm probably gonna create a straight, I'm gonna reheat it again to make it a straight line and get some joints at the hardware store. I'm gonna measure them out and probably some waterproof glue like silicone, and try to add the joints to the end, the 90-degree joints, and just have it shoot straight down. This way I can, this way it'll be a lot easier. There's two reasons I want to do this. The first is that, first of all, I don't have to deal with the kinks. Secondly, it's also going to make it a lot easier for me to control the level of the pipe and where the intakes are on both ends. As you can see over here, it's really a struggle to kind of get this one lower so that I can create the backwards force to return the water back into this tank. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot easier with the PVC pipes with the joints in place. So anyway, hopefully the next video should be the finished product with the actual water flowing through. With that being said, I don't actually intend on running it even once I finish the setup. So I might test it just to get the water flowing, but I'm not actually gonna run it. Once I test it and make sure like, okay, it works, the fish can go back and forth, I'm gonna just take it apart, or at least I'm gonna remove the water from both ends. That's mainly because of the fact that this tank, I still haven't finished setting it up yet, and I just like working in a tank with no fish or anything inside of it. It's, I mean, there, as you can see, there's a snail there. I put 2 snails in there just to help with cycling the tank. But in addition to that, I also have some Daphnia slash scuds coming in the mail that I bought on eBay, and they're going to be here in about a week, and I plan on dumping them into this tank, maybe keeping a small culture of them on the side in like a mason jar that I have to just to raise them on my own as a like kind of like a backup culture. But I'm hoping that they can get settled into this tank before I start moving in some of the predatory fish like the loaches, because I imagine the loaches are gonna have a heyday with them, and I'd like them to multiply and kind of proliferate a little bit before the loaches start attacking them. Same with the snails. I kind of wanted my snails to multiply a little bit more. I know some people, you guys absolutely hate pond snails. Pond snails are like, you know, the worst thing on the planet. I gotta say that I kind of agreed with you up until the point that I got my yo-yo loach. Once I got my yo-yo loach, the pond snails were no longer a problem. I still had occasional pond snails, but nowhere on the level that I was seeing with when I didn't have the yo-yo loach. Like before, I used to have like the entire front end of my aquarium covered in snails, which I thought was like, it looked really gross and it was disgusting. So I decided like, hey, let me look for some predatory fish. And you can look at my past videos on my channel to where I kind of went through that whole spiel. I bought like a beta, that didn't work out. Then I tried to look into some assassin snails and finally settled on the yo-yo loach. And yeah, the yo-yo loach has been great. Cracked down on, you know, brought the law down on the snail population. But at the same time, I don't want to completely eradicate the snail population. So, because they do some good in the tank, like outside of like, you know, looking really ugly when there's a bunch of them, they actually do an amazing job at cleaning the tank. As you can see, I have absolutely no algae whatsoever on my glass. This in comparison to some other fish tank owners whose tanks I've seen whom they do not have snails, and you know, they kind of have like a lot of the spotted algae and a lot of the fuzz algae all over. And this is even with I mean, you know, one could argue that even with shrimp you might not need the snails, because I do have shrimp in this tank as well. But yeah, I like the snails a lot because they help with the cleaning, makes the maintenance portion of owning a fish tank very easy. I don't have to do anything pretty much. Same reason I own plants too, like real live plants, because you know, having to do like, I know some places say like a water change a week. That just sounds absolutely absurd. I don't have the time for a water. I mean, I do have the time. I just don't want to do a water change a week or 2 water changes a month or whatever. Like I probably change my water like once every 2 months, if even that, just because of the fact that like these live plants, and then of course like and I know some people say like, hey, toxins can build up, yada yada yada. I have a water testing kit. Don't worry. I use the water testing kit. I monitor my water conditions and they're excellent. No ammonia, no nitrates, no nitrites, blah, blah, blah. pH is great. So I just change it just to change it, because you know, I don't have to change it based on the water parameters, but I just change it because, well, you know, it's been a while since I changed it. So might as well throw some fresh water in there for the fishies. And I also siphon off some of the water and use it for fertilizer for my plants. That's pretty much the only reason I do water changes. So that's why I love planted tanks, and that's why I love shrimps and snails in my planted tanks, because you know, it's basically like a self-sustaining ecosystem. It's like you own a real like life part of nature in your living room, which I think is pretty cool, assuming that you take care of it well. I know that was a bit of a tangent, but just wanted to talk a little bit about that and why. I mean, hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight on why I'm doing this whole thing, because I think it's pretty cool to like kind of use the power of nature to sort of manage my own tank for me, which is why I created the whole siphon system in the back, where like these two tanks can be connected, and I can just have like, you know, gravity doing all the work in terms of circulating the water out, and the bacteria from this tank moving over to this tank and helping with the cycling, and, you know, doing water changes in one tank and balancing it all out, yada yada. So anyway, once this is next video, as you can see, it's probably gonna be a joint here and a joint here, and moving the two down, and hopefully there'll be some life in this tank by that time, besides just the two little lonely snails that I have here. Anyway, toodles. Thanks for watching the video.